Okay, for all you silly Hythloday supporters, yeah, here's another video where he, is going to stick his smelly, stinking foot in his ass and then lick it. Okay, here he comes.
Okay, feeling charitable for those few likers of the amendment and draft science videos. Just cannot allow this to stand.
Cannot allow it to stand. So I've violated some, fundamental violation. Guess what? I don't think so. So how much you want to bet? He's just going to again do the same bullshit, like not pay attention and then debunk a theory nobody's presenting. Yeah, how much you want to bet?
So ridiculous. Right. The amendment draft science has unified sweet FA, sweet dog, right?
Sweet dog? I don't know. I do have it sped up because he does talk a little slow, but I don't even know what he's talking about. Yes, I have unified forces, which is basically unifying physics. Yes.
No, especially. The reason he's unified nothing is because he rejects quantum mechanics and he rejects classical mechanics.
Well, whatever. So you're not going to be able to turn that into a rational statement, in my opinion. So, it's just kind of silly. I mean, obviously, I like much of classical, and the only part of quantum mechanics I reject is the theory of cause. So if you want to say what, I reject that there are probabilistically, understandably probabilistic outcomes when photons go into a slit. Well, of course there are. But it's not being caused because photons are doing it. It's being caused by electrons that are doing it. So, again, just keep lying, okay, about what what I'm saying and what the implications of what I am saying are. I mean, yeah, petty person you is.
He doesn't even have classical mechanics, where you might start with F equals ma, the force.
Right, well, see, F equals ma is a little bit tricky when you start establishing things like the mass of a photon. Then you're starting to, like I said, then you're bleeding the whole concept of mass into a place it doesn't belong. Mass is a measurement of, fundamentally atomic weight is the way we associate things with mass. And a photon has no atomic weight. So technically it shouldn't be in the category of a massed particle. And likewise, I would argue that doing the same thing with electrons and protons is very dangerous, because they're not the same kind of matter. Can you understand that? The subatomic particles are not you don't call like steering wheel car wheel. Because a steering wheel can be in a lot of different things.
That an object feels, experiences.
Well, I like that you said object. That's nice and okay, but not all the objects are the same. So again, using an equation and then saying object is a little bit dangerous.
Is equal to its mass times the acceleration.
Right, okay, so you're saying that goes for electrons and every other particle. Now, what I would argue with electrons is their acceleration is held so briefly. They're decelerating as soon as they're accelerating. So it would be kind of silly to talk about any force impact they carry, because they can't carry the velocity that's a consequence of acceleration. So F equals ma is only true, I think you would agree, if in the very next second you didn't make something accelerate in exactly the opposite direction. I mean, you do have to pay attention to plus and minus signs. And I guess I would argue that some objects are experiencing high rates of fluctuation in their M&A.
Likewise, the acceleration an object feels is proportional to the force divided by the mass.
Well, what it feels is kind of, you know, sorry, you can't get that humans feel, but you can get that these things can feel? Interesting.
This force is acting on a body.
Yeah, the body is acquiring it. That's what I'm arguing. So what's going to happen is a force hits it, like something's carrying the force or something emits the force in the form of force. Okay, so something either shoots tons or something actually physically pushes into it and has the force inside of it. And that force, okay, is conveyed to the other body, okay, and depending on the mass of the other body, it will zoom away at different speeds because there'll be a ratio to holding the force. Because if it has less atoms in it, then there'll be more force versus atoms, and therefore it will go faster because the ratio of the force, which is all in one direction, to the atomic structure going in different directions will be lower. Therefore the force will dominate the outcome. Can you understand that?
This is starting basis and assumption of classical mechanics. Now, if you want to hypothesize that there are no such bodies, but every body is in fact composed...
Oh, there you go. Now you're starting to catch on. That's right. Everything's composed of something except the tons, the force elements, the ones compressed into protons and electrons, which I've talked about over and over again as being distinctive. They're full of force-like elements, but they aren't free force elements. They're bound force elements.
Of the same unit particles, perhaps of different characteristics, whether you call it colour, polarization.
I mean, he's just going to be stupid here. I mean, profoundly stupid. I mean, you're just not going to win this argument, Hythloday, because you don't have any, you're not going to provide any information about how you know how dense the quantum field would be. Now, the idea is that unwritten in this picture is the idea that there's all these dots, that there's dots all out of here, and that some percentage of them are heading right for this object and are constantly hitting this object at a very, very, very high rate. So red and blue arrows are constantly crashing into this thing, and the only thing that keeps it in one place is the fact that there's a balance of the energy. So when this force arrow is going to really mean is an imbalance, like I'm going to have more blue than red or more red than blue, and that's the important thing, right? There's not going to be a difference in their number, there's going to be a difference in their color. Sorry if you didn't see that, a difference in their color from side to side. So there's a zillion little dots all around this body. And what force is all of a sudden there's more blue over here, and there's obviously there's got to be proportionally more red somewhere, but the point is that any concentration of blue here would mean this thing's going to be affected based on its color in a blue way, and or more red, it'll be affected in a red way. Now if this was an electron, it was blue, then, and this was a blue force, then the movement's going to be in the electron. Now, if it was a red force, the movement's going to be in the production of EMF, perpendicular radiation of the force.
Shape, whatever, but essentially the same particulate body. You want to
They're not the same, as pointed out over and over. I mean, I deliberately used 2 colors of magic marker. That was deliberate. I thought imbeciles could figure out that 2 colors mean different.
to hypothesize that the electron, which is treated classically as a fundamental particle and as a point-like particle, that is having no constituents, you want to hypothesize that it's made of these component features.
Well, whatever. Hythloday is saying that classical physics says electrons have no features or properties, and that's just ludicrous. Quite obviously, they do things in the world. That is, they convert one form of energy into another form of energy by by common physicist understanding. There's a thing that happens with electrons. They're not simpletons. So you're just lying to say that there's any classical interpretation that says photons are the dumbest thing on Earth. They're certainly smarter than photons. They're more complex than photons. They speak more words.
That can only interact in two basic ways. I'm not going to bother changing colours because...
Oh yeah, because it's only foundational to my theory, so don't bother doing it because it's only the fundamental principle that I went over and over again, that this is what makes it distinctive. You couldn't tell the difference if it wasn't for the colors. The colors what gives it away that something's happening. The polarization's being segregated. It's the only thing that makes the whole thing really, really interesting is the polarization, so he's not going to bother.
Anybody who's seen this knows the Emendum situation.
Yes, and they know I draw it in colors every single time. Fuckhead.
Of an impact. Two particles. Essentially it's one layer, only with a colour dynamic.
Yeah, well, again, one way, it's two ways. So this could be red and this could be blue to start off with, but the point is the blue thing goes that way and the red thing goes that way. And that's, the reflection thing. And the only way you can see that is if they're colored. If you make some kind of distinction so you can identify that it's two different polarizations going in different directions, that there's a change in direction. A 90-degree change in direction. Can I say that some way to all the Hythloday fans? Could you convey to Hythloday, please, any of the Hythloday fans out there, there's a 90-degree change in direction of the polarization. Can you hear me? Can you Morse code that information to this fucking asswipe for me, please? When you're going to his house to lick his anus, would you please just let him know that it's the polarization leaving perpendicularly to its arrival. That's called a change.
Well, if you want to hypothesize that that's the only interaction, and this thing is made of...
Well, I didn't hypothesize that that's the only reaction, but you didn't even draw it correctly, but you didn't include the colors. So, I mean, how deceptive and evil can you people defend? What kind of... I mean, do I really have to keep throwing the same fucking drawings over and over and over? I mean, it's disgusting. I don't want to... I didn't think I had to look for the first grader drawings anymore. But, I mean, there's two interactions. I pointed out the major interactions. Same color on same color ends up being a reflection. So this arrow flips, this arrow flips in terms of the force dynamic. And it is important in terms of keeping the pressure on the little body. And the other interaction is when they hit perpendicularly. When they hit perpendicular in the same color, nothing can possibly be different because it's obvious when they're the same color. It's an X. Nothing changes. And no matter how you turn the X around, it's all the same. And the point is when they're two different polarizations, a lot changes. Yes, so those are the two interactions. You cement-headed fuckhead.
Those, then you have no consistent body. And it's no good crying about how
I don't have to cry about it. I mean, this is just... I don't... I almost want to beg one of you cunts to be honest. One of you people who are defending these shabby fucking arguments to be an honest motherfucker and just say how fucking dishonest this is. Physics right now doesn't have to explain why electrons don't fly into pieces. They established them as existing. I'm saying I can perfectly explain why they stay together. He hasn't provided any evidence of any reason why they would fall apart, because I'm saying there's blue and red arrows constantly, a zillion of them, constantly pushing that thing. And there's no way for a blue to actually really get out, because the only thing that can really happen is when a red hits it, the red goes out. And when a blue hits it, it's pushing a blue back in. So there's really no way that once the blue is segregated that it could fly apart. So even his theory that it would fly apart is a lie, because it's constantly being hit by more blues pushing it back in. Oh man, you fucking piece of shit.
Einstein didn't have to explain the existence of electrons. You're the one, because they say the point line.
Oh, because they say their point like. That gives them an excuse. Because they say, I choose not to try to explain where it came from or what it's made of or how it does anything or how it makes photons or how it does anything. I won't explain anything, and therefore I can just say, it's a metal ball. And he can get away with that. It's a metal ball. There, I did my physics. What a cunt you are. It's a blob of bent space booger. There, I'm done. I don't have to explain what it is. It's bent space booger. Okay, there, we're done with doing physics now, aren't we? This Hythloday won't ask any further questions because I've established it's just a round ball of bent space boogers.
The classical and quantum model, they're point-like. They have no constituents.
Oh, right, they have no properties. Constituents means properties, newsflash. You just said electrons have no properties. They're just a thing, a fucking thing. Okay, I can't compare it to a planet because planets have all kinds of swirly bits. Gee, what the fuck could you possibly compare it to? A perfectly humongous, I can't use atoms because atoms have geometric arrangements inside. What the fuck could I possibly compare it to in the known universe? It's the most special thing in the universe. It's a perfectly nothing. A perfect, complete thing of nothing with no constituent mechanisms or properties. It's just that thing. The electron stuff, and there's no atomic structure, there's no mechanical structure, there's nothing. It's just perfect electronia. I mean, what a cunt.
You're the one saying they have constituents and that they obey these principles.
Yes, wow, so many rules, right? I mean, blue arrow goes into red. I mean, there's 6 rules. 6 whole rules? Oh no, I can't possibly follow along. 6 rules? Yes, that's right. The universe runs on 6 axioms. That is, mechanisms that require no explanation. They're just a fact. And the fact is, red pops out of blue perpendicularly, and blue pops out of red perpendicularly. Just the rule.
There is no real...
Well, actually, there's a frickin' mechanics to it, but, that's for some other person to play around with. Because, frankly, it's quite obvious all the bits go through the center, and it's the center of the electron where the traffic cop is, and the traffic cop is basically saying reds, he kind of doesn't like reds. And he always forces them to take left or right turns. He'll never let them go straight.
Notion of force here, except...
No notion of force here. Force is external to the body, you fucking asswipe. Force is external to the electron, idiot.
A collision of particles. So, there is no notion of constant force.
There's no notion of constant force. So again, now he's saying I don't allow for the existence of a beam of electrons. So I mean a beam of laser beam or something. My physics doesn't allow there to be any force conveyance. I don't allow anything to communicate with the electron at all. Nothing could ever touch it. Even though I've said the whole universe is full of force, and it's imbalance in the force that makes something move in a direction. I've only drawn pictures over and over again. This is all force. All of this is force. And it becomes really powerful force when it's all one color in one side. Then it's strong force. It's weak when it's all mixed up like that. And it's strong when it's segregated.
So we're in this equation gives us...
So again, he's applying F equals ma to electrons, which is really dangerous because they're really not the same as matter.
Facility to predict at various times t and x where a particle might be.
Okay, again, a particle. What kind of particle? I mean, F equals ma was not invented to cover the movement of atomic particles. I don't want to surprise you, but they didn't know they existed when F equals ma was figured out. F equals ma applies to mass objects, objects that have atomic structure and atomic weight.
In principle, this mathematics is not applicable.
Yes, it isn't really. The point is that the equality of it, the conservation of it, is still going to be applicable. Okay, the mass is always important. The acceleration, that means the quanta bits, is important, and their end result is always going to be a migration or change in force. So what's going to happen is some of the force is going to go into the body, and some of the force is going to leave the body. So again, if this is blue force on blue, a different thing is going to happen than blue force on red. So what the thing that's getting hit with the particular polarization matters. Now you know that polarization matters. You have to. That different bodies will react differently depending on the polarization. That's a concept in physics you must know about. So what is this tacky, putrid, juvenile effort at a completely fake problem in my mechanics? There's no problem in my mechanics. There's no conservation issue, and there's a clear explanation of why imbalance is created in the system. When a force stops going this way and goes this way, there's a huge change in the balance, idiot.
In the draft science scheme of things, if you consider 4 particles, and as Mendham likes to do, imagine particles bouncing ever closer as
well, again, see, look what he just did here. I never first off, these 4 particles would have to be, you have to define who they are, electrons or protons, whether they're positively or negatively being tied together, because they couldn't exist in this configuration. If this was a proton, these were electrons, there'd be a problem with this configuration. But regardless, if this was an electron and this was an electron, yes, as they moved towards each other, there would be field energy, all of this stuff caught between them, and these arrows would have to get compressed as the two things move towards each other. The blue ones, if it's 2 electrons, none of the blue ones can get through, so the red ones would go out through the perpendicular, the blue ones would be trapped between them, and as they move closer and closer together, there would be more and more impact. So the same amount of quanta pushed together creates more force, and that's exactly parallel to everything that happens in electricity. That's exactly what happens to currents and charge.
As these 4 particles move in, under the schema and the scheme, the system of interaction that he's proposed, this never happens.
Okay, so I mean, there's no, how can I argue what he's obviously, well, how can he say it never happens when I explicitly say it happens? How the fuck can he possibly say it never happens? I mean, I just don't know how you people can allow this guy to be such a fucking liar without ragging him. Are you that dishonest, or do you all have such micro petty penises that you'll keep defend people lying about me? Is that how little integrity you have, M-Cool guy, or whatever, you fucking cunts? That you'll allow people to just gratuitously keep lying?
Because at the first interaction here, it may have bounced back, but this one is travelling over there now.
Yeah, no, it doesn't go over there now. It's inside. It's inside the body. You just converted, I've said it so many times, you converted something that was going in this dimension into going in this dimension. So you basically took something going this way currently. One of these little dots was going this way, down. It got hit, and it's now going that way, forward. It hasn't left the body. It's just changed its direction inside the electron. So now the electron has more arrows going this way than it had going this way, which means it has more arrows going that way, which means it'll probably move that way. I mean, I went over this and over this. I said it 15 times, then I made a video joking about how many times I said it. It's inside the electron, you cunt. It doesn't go that way. There's constant field energy. Anything going that way will be hit by the field energy eventually going this way, and it'll be turned that way. And then the field energy is going to hit it that way. Nothing can ever go anywhere because there's constantly interactions, because it's so fucking thick with energy, you idiot. There's 1 trillion interactions per second in that one electron. 1 trillion.
And if that one hits this one is travelling over there. And
again, he keeps saying it's traveling over there. When I keep saying, no, it's inside the electron. It's inside the electron, and as it goes forward, it's going to hit field energy that will reverse its direction. And yes, sometimes things will go further outside of the shell of the electron and come back. But so nothing ever bounces perfectly evenly inside the electron. But the idea is something could be going this way. It gets hit by the field. All right, field. All right, then it bounces back this way. And maybe it goes this far. And then it gets hit by the field and reverses. And then it only goes this far. And then it gets hit by the field here. So these... You can't understand how the field keeps hitting it and it keeps getting caught back and forth because of the pressure. The pressure of the field. Fuck, I mean, this guy isn't an idiot, so he's got to be doing this on purpose, because he can't be this fucking stupid. Because yes, there's absolutely no hope of fixing physics if people who know a little bit of science and can do a little tiny bit of math are as stupid and stone-brained as this motherfucker. You don't understand, right? There's a ton of energy pointed right at you. The opposite of a light bulb. All of these tons are coming in right at you. And you don't understand why you stay in one piece? You can't understand that, you dumb fuck?
no longer going to be part of the body.
Says fucking you with absolutely no explanation for why it can't be part of the body. Why doesn't the filament on the light bulb fly into pieces? Why do you think that is? Even though it's pushing all this energy out, what force do you think could possibly be holding it together? Oh, that's right. Bent space. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's why you people can't understand. Yeah, well, guess what? It's not bent space that's holding it together. It's fucking goddamn gravity, and gravity is a motherfucker. It's pushing you together every minute. It's coming from all angles. It isn't just coming up and down. No, it's pushing from you on all the sides, you stupid jackass. All right, well, I'm not going to do much more of this. I mean, this is... I mean, it's just too fucking stupid to dignify with a fucking goddamn civil response. And fuck anybody who sits there and says this is a way of debunking somebody. If this is your debunking, if this is how you, I'm going to take care of those silly flat earthers, if you treat a flat earther like this, you should be mocked out of science or mocked out of any intelligent community. You guys suck. You can't make a fucking argument. This is like defeating a feminist by saying your vagina smells. You people are lame fuckers.
Mendham seems to think he can suppose that at a correct time, let's not forget this is a random distribution of particles in a fluid.
It's not in a fluid. So it's again, they're like, they're just floating around. I'm being moved by the fluid. No, they're going in straight line vectors, hard straight lines, and they don't change that until they hit the fuck out of something. That's it. Till they hit it. Hit it. Hard.
Of quanta in his scheme, that
if there was such a random field of little bits moving the speed of light, you could statistically understand that there are a certain number of these little bits that will never go anywhere near these two things. And then there's a certain number of these little bits that are heading right for them, right for their nuts. And maybe you'd understand that would constitute pressure. If you had any kind of honesty or decency, if you were like a normally functioning 5-year-old brain, you could sort of understand that if I put a bunch of little green army men soldiers around you, and I did it randomly, and then we took out all the ones that weren't pointing their guns at you, that the ones left to be a lot of them, and they'd all be pointing their guns at you. And it would look like they all knew where you were and exactly how to kill you. And you'd feel the pressure. You'd feel the fucking pressure. Certainly if they were real little Nazi soldiers. If there was a billion little real Nazi soldiers all pointing their gun right at you, you'd feel the pressure, pussy shit.
At the right time, there will be a maintained particle to maintain this.
Yes, there would be field in between them. Just like there's field everywhere else, there would be field that just happened to be between these two particles. So what if they were 100,000 light years apart and they started moving together? There would be some sucker who stuck right in between them. So yes, depending on how they become associated to each other will depend on how much is trapped between them, but it's inevitable that somebody's going to be caught in between them. Somebody's going to be in musical chairs. There's always somebody without a chair, jackass.
Ever increasing reflectivity, so to speak.
There'll be ever increasing frequency between the bounces. That's right. If I have something bouncing between my fingers and I move my fingers closer and closer together, the same thing bounces a lot faster. So it hits my thumb. The number of times it hits it increases. Number of times it hits my forefinger increases. That's called, in my vernacular, an increase in pressure.
There has to be a particle there but it's been bounced off. And if it isn't bounced off...
Oh, it's been bounced off. Where did it bounce off? It has to rebound. It has to reflect. So the surface I described, I made an analogy of this, of two mirrors. And he's still saying he still can't get it. I used two mirrors. How exactly does something bounce off? It stuck between the two mirrors. Back and forth, back and forth. And what a cunt.
In the first collision, the second one will send it, and there's no way to guarantee that you maintain these four particles within the body.
Within the body. What I'm saying is the field pressure all the way around this thing is doing the maintenance. And the only way you can change the pressure, okay, is in the local area. So you can change the local pressure, but the absolute pressure always exists. And if you change the local pressure, yes, then the bodies will move apart. So when this pressure gets too high, these two things will move apart and the pressure will reduce. What can't you understand about that?
Under this rule. So that's...
It's a spring, for fuck's sake. It's exactly what happens in the material real physics. Electrons behave almost like they're on springs. They bump into each other and then fly off of each other. That's how they convey force to each other. Whew, amazing.
That's nonsense number one.
Alright, so I'm this nonsense word. I mean, just fuck you. You are just such a despicable hunk of shit. I just can't fucking believe how low you jackasses will go. And you'll keep defending each other's arguments. You'll keep supporting Piro's irrational arguments. He'll probably support this piece of shit of a video. I mean, so you've resigned yourself to exactly ignoring what I'm saying, just slander the fuck out of me, so you can throw me in some nutter category. And I've got you on the record doing it, so I'm just saying, when the truth is known, when the truth is found out, your humiliation is what you're going to have to live with for the rest of your motherfucking life. You're going to have to realize for the rest of your fucking goddamn life that you just trash talked. Okay, you're far better. Not you're minorly better, you're far better. And you did it because you're a petty fuck. For no other reason than you have a petty resentment. Because I bettered you. And you can't beat me honestly, so you have to try to beat me dishonestly. Because you have a little tiny mind. And other tiny body parts. Tied to a big fat pig. Thank you very much.